Um, well, so when I joined Beamdog in 2018, they were a company of I think 17 people at the time, and since then we've experienced rapid growth. So we're now close to about 80 people, and we're still continuing to grow. So for us, culture was kind of at top of mind with a company that would be growing so fast, so quickly. So we wanted to make sure that there was good corporate culture in place, so that we had good building blocks when it came to adding so many employees to the mix. There's a couple of mechanisms that we've used to really help us out. One was implementing an HRIS system that included performance management that also had a really solid system of getting employee feedback. So we use a program called Bamboo HR, which has a really nice system of both employee and employee manager self-assessments that happens quarterly, alongside peer reviews, alongside an ENPS, Employee Net Satisfaction Survey. And then in addition to all of those things outside of that, we do monthly employee manager one-on-ones. So it's just a really good idea, or a really good thing that helps us get an idea all the time of how employees are doing, continuously being able to offer them feedback, and to have a really good kind of communication standpoint with our employees. So we find that's really helpful, just to ensure that employees always feel like they're cared for. They feel like we're involved with their personal growth and development. There's a goals system and template that live within the HRIS that help us track any sort of like employee goals, employees' career goals, personal goals, and then like anything like OKRs or KPIs that we'd like to place. On top of that, we do a lot of little things that I think help us promote culture and good communication. So we do every Monday a company-wide stand-up that involves headlines and updates to the company, updates on every single project, so that all of the employees company-wide know what's happening in the individual projects. Right now we have 4 major projects that are running, so that you kind of just get an idea of what everyone else is doing. We can celebrate the successes, and then we also do employee shout-outs every Monday. So one of the cool things that we're doing with the shout-outs too is that we're tying into company core values, which I think is the kind of second biggest thing that we did to really help promote culture here. Is our senior leadership team came up with a new set of core values that has been put into place last year, and we've been really doing our best to integrate those into every aspect of our of the business. So whether it be in hiring, we do a values assessment and a values interview now. We utilize those same values when we do our performance assessments, and we utilize those as a tool to enable people to make decisions. We have a core values competency model that we use that gives really good day-to-day examples of what our employees at both the individual contributor all the way up to director level can do to ensure that the decisions that they're making and the actions that are undertaking align with those values. So those are kind of the main things that we've undertaken recently. Yeah, so one of the things that came up in the audit was a need for just continuous communication, particularly with people working from home. We were finding a few communication breakdowns that just kind of happened with people being outside of the office and not hearing those day-to-day conversations. So we use Discord in addition to Slack and Google Hangouts, various meeting platforms. And so we added something called a water cooler channel, which in Discord, people can just come in and jump about in, chat about whatever. So it's just a good way for people to have that day-to-day interaction that they started to miss in the office. Another thing that we did is one of the things that the survey brought to light was, when it comes to employee career growth, we always had a training budget that we had in place for each individual employee, and we did have those things that were logged in our HRIS system. But we found that the employees didn't have a really great mechanism, aside from the monthly one-on-ones, which the managers were responsible or taking that information and inputting it into our HRS system, we didn't have a good mechanism for the employees to be able to do that themselves and to take control of their own requests for training. So we actually created a Google Doc request form where employees can now go in and fill out training requests. So they tell us things, like what is it for, how will it impact their career growth, what kind of ways they plan to take this training, what support they need, and then, the typical like what the costs look like and things like that. Just as another way to enable us to get a really good idea of what people want. The way that we were previously doing it was relying on our managers to push forward that communication. And a lot of our managers are really busy. They don't always necessarily have the time to, when they're having those monthly one-on-ones where it is expected that we talk about career growth, make sure that those notes get in place and that they're filtering down that information to myself or other people who can help approve and organize that training. This way it empowers the employees to take that into their own hands and to start the conversation directly with myself or some other managers. So we've done a couple things. One was something that was kind of kickstarted by undergoing this audit process with you, which is we always offered lunch and learns to our employees, and they were on various topics across the board, anything from personal growth to technical training, things like that. So one of the things that the survey came up with is that people actually wanted a little more support in the terms of like mental health, personal growth, working from home. So we had offered a couple before that survey was completed, but we've really tried to focus on that in the last little while. So we did the resilience training with yourself, which everyone really loved. We had great feedback about it. And then in addition to that, we've also done, we've done a couple lunch and learns on topics related to that. So we did one on office ergonomics, mental health in the workplace. And then we have one upcoming that we're planning on meditation, because that was a request that we got a lot as well. So we've really tried to do things to support people in that process. We've also made sure that we're continuously communicating with our employees. So both myself as well as other managers are doing weekly check-ins. So I just basically pick a group of like 10 to 15 employees, write them a personalized message via Slack, which is just like a almost MSN Messenger, like old school type communication tool if you're not familiar. And we check in on them. Hey, how you doing? How things going? What can I do to help you out? And it's surprising how many people just, like want to jump on a call, because you can call via Slack and just chat for a little bit. In addition, so, we're trying to do everything we can to keep on top of that. In addition, people were craving that like one-on-one interaction. So there's a really great app in Slack called Donut Buddy. And what it does is every 2 to 3 weeks, it'll set people up for an individualized chat with a random person in the organization so that people can get outside their bubble. We have our daily meetings that happen every day, but usually only see the same group of like 5 to 10 people. So it's a good way to connect with some other people in the office that you might not see anymore at all because you're not working with them, and just have a half hour to chat about whatever. There's no like prescribed what you have to discuss or you have to talk about. It's kind of just a really great tool to get some one-on-one interaction though. So so we've been doing that. And then in addition to that, we continue to do things like our Friday, we call it Beamdog, which is 4:30. Everyone who would like to join just jumps on an online call. We play board games or video games together. There's a bunch of groups that are happening, and we continue to support those things and encourage employees to take part in those various kind of online chats and forums to connect. I would say the one biggest thing is to communicate back to your employees about the advice that they're giving to you. So one of the big changes we made last year with the continuing ENPSs that we did is we were getting feedback quarterly from our employees, and we were able to go through those results. And then in addition, we did the survey with yourself and with WellnessWorks. But we found what was happening is we were making all these changes because of the feedback that we were getting, but sometimes those would take a long time to put in place, or they would be things that maybe we can't make any changes about, or things that were really quick fixes. Communicating to our employees which actions that we were taking out of those EMPSs, and communicating even when there were things that we couldn't change, and just being really honest about that feedback and where that all, what would come out of that feedback was really good to just let our employees know that we were actually listening and actually taking action. It's one thing to take those actions, but it's another thing to communicate that back to the employees and let them know what you're doing.